This video is sponsored by Atlas VPN. For a limited time, you can have Atlas VPN Premium for just $183 per month for 3 years and 3 months extra, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy and receive many other great benefits for an amazing low cost by clicking the link in the description below. So, when it comes to Bluey's friend group, Lucky is often considered one of the, less popular characters. Because despite receiving a surprising amount of merchandise, such as a plush, a small figure, and appearances on many other items, Lucky is seemingly forgotten, as his appearances in episodes are usually quite limited, and even when he does appear, his roles are usually not that important, to the point that it almost feels as if he's more of a background character. If anything, he's basically the NPC of Bluey. Like that one character in a game that usually isn't playable unless there's like 8 controllers connected or something. And yeah, that sounds like an insult, but we all know it's been true for a while. And although he is kinda cool, there's not really that much going for him. And yet, despite this, his father Pat is arguably one of the most beloved characters of the show, considered by many fans as the quote-unquote unsung hero of Bluey, often seen playing with the family and going with their ideas, even if it gets him in trouble. And as of season 3, he's even had his own fair share of moments in the spotlight, with him playing a notable part in the episode Pass the Parcel. And at this point, most people don't even call Lucky's dad, well, Lucky's dad. Most just call him Pat because he's considered that important, with many even joking that Lucky should just be renamed to Pat's son. And online, you can find many more singing his praises, whether it's on Twitter, Reddit, and with this video, YouTube. And of course there's also some who like him, but as in really like him. You know what I'm talking about, but we'll get to that later. And with that in mind, one can't help but wonder how Lucky was left undeveloped and forgotten over time, while his father, either by accident or intentionally, took up most of the spotlight. So for today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how Pat became such an icon for the show, and why his son really didn't catch on in the same way. But before we begin, I'm sure a lot of you are curious on learning more about Pat and Lucky, and maybe finding some more information online about the real Labradors that inspired their characters. And for that, we have today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. Have you ever wanted to save money, avoid being tracked online, and watch your favorite show about blue healers and Labradors from any part of the world? Well, if you're not crazy, yeah, Atlas VPN can do all of that and more. And with their amazing deal, Atlas VPN can keep your internet searches private, get the best deals while shopping online, and even unlock shows not available in your country, such as ones about talking dogs and Labrador dads. And with their special offer, you can get 3 whole years for only $183 a month, including 3 months extra on top of that, protecting your privacy with the best deal on the market and on unlimited devices. So before it's too late, get this limited time offer using the link in the description. Special thanks to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. Lucky and his father first appeared in the season 1 episode Keepy Uppy, and considering that this is literally the 3rd episode of the entire show, the two already have a pretty good advantage, as this was before any of the other friends were really introduced. And yet despite this, we can already see Pat starting to steal the show, because Lucky does help the family play Keepy Uppy, but this really wasn't a memorable moment or a particularly iconic one. What was an iconic moment though, is when Pat joins in, helping out as he would later on, but getting hurt in the process, or at least pretending to, depending on who you ask, where he says this iconic line.
I got it, boy!
And right here, from their very first appearance, Pat already has an advantage, because from here, he already has a fun catchphrase for people to repeat or laugh at, and something that could be referenced later on. In fact, I kinda hope it becomes a running gag in the show, kinda like that one character who constantly hurts his leg in SpongeBob. And I'm pretty sure it is referenced in that one Highball short, but even without a running gag or iconic catchphrase, I think another obvious reason as to why Pat got more popular is because even in his limited roles, he was simply better written and arguably accomplished way more. Now, in all fairness, I don't know the reasons or the inspiration behind Lucky or Pat in the show, so I'm kind of shooting in the dark here, but it feels like Lucky is kind of just there out of obligation. Like, regarding Bluey's friends, we have the active but adventurous kids like Jack and Rusty, the more demanding but often good-intentioned Honey and Coco, the sometimes invasive but well-meaning Winton, and I think Snickers is kind of meant to be the sort of smart, nerdy kid, but in a cool way. And of course there's Mackenzie, who is... honestly, I don't really know how to describe him. He's really in his own category, but in the best way possible. And with that, it felt as if they just needed a character who had an interest in sports to complete the group. Because every show I know always has that one character who's especially athletic. Which I guess makes sense as most kids do like one sport or another, making Lucky somewhat relatable. But when it came to actually introducing this character, it felt like they really didn't know where to put him. As for the other characters, they don't really play any particular sport that often, because while there are definitely some episodes that do focus on sports, it's out of the park!
Holy G!
Most of them usually revolve around other things kids like to do, such as pretend games, role-playing, or the struggle of starving to death because you were denied ice cream. And since Lucky really doesn't have a particular attribute towards this, he ended up being this kind of blank slate that just does whatever, which makes a lot of people see him as generic. And I'm sure some probably don't even realize he's a Bluey character, much less a main member of Bluey's friend group. And with that said, we don't even know if Lucky and Bluey actually know each other that well, as they directly interact with each other very rarely, with the two usually being together in situations where basically everyone else is, such as a large party or gathering. Also, I've heard some say that Lucky might actually be a couple years older than Bluey, and that they might not even be a part of the same age group, which I think makes a lot of sense as a headcanon. And with that in mind, I'd argue that Pat was kind of in a similar place, being this character that wasn't really meant to do much, and just there to give Lucky some kind of parental figure. But even then, he did have more advantages, as by being this more chill, stronger male figure, I feel like the show was willing to put him through things that they probably wouldn't do with other characters, such as Wendy or even Doreen, although the former would turn out to be an absolute beast in her own right. And with that in mind, whenever the show did need someone to take the hit that wasn't a part of the main family, Pat was the perfect choice. So even though he may have started or intended to be a character that didn't do much, he ultimately got a unique role within the show that his son would more or less struggle with. And by having this special purpose, he would of course begin to appear more and more often, to the point that he's arguably quite the notable character by season 3. And not to mention that by taking in so much and going through as much as he does, he's incredibly likable and easy to root for, because I think we've all had that moment where we had to deal with somebody else's problems or help out when we really didn't want to, making him relatable in his own way. And yet, despite all of this, the dude is pretty chill, so it makes him practically impossible to hate on. I don't know why anyone would want to hate on Pat in the first place, but yeah, he's pretty cool. And not to mention the one thing I almost forgot, which is that Pat is one of the few adult characters who actually plays some kind of decent role, as outside of the healer family, there aren't that many adult characters for parents or adults to relate to, as apart from a few exceptions, most of them either play minor roles or didn't get more screen time until later on. In fact, we didn't even know what some of these characters looked like until recently, such as Janelle or Brandy, so Pat arguably has another advantage in that field as well. And speaking of advantages, this one might raise a few eyebrows, and I know I'm gonna get a few comments about this, but I'm sorry, I have to say it. A lot of people, totally not including me, think Pat is, well, how do I put this, attractive.
What? Hey, Bandit, you hearing this?
Yeah, where you been, mate?
Okay, I know. Calm down and, let me explain. Because this is actually kind of important. I think. So, for those who aren't aware, there are a lot of people who have a, I guess, crush on the parents from Bluey, and this is especially so for the dad characters. Once again, totally, absolutely not including me. And I'm not exactly sure if there's a very particular reason why people crush on them, and it's hard to describe. But I think it's mainly because a lot of people online are just into older guys in general, especially those who come off as caring or chill, which as we mentioned before, Pat perfectly fits the bill of. And when asking people online, I've also heard some people say that he's a fun alternative to Bandit, as Bandit is arguably the one that people online tend to simp for, or appreciate the most. But considering that this is kind of becoming the mainstream approach, a lot of fans have also found, interest in the other characters to be more unique, I guess. Which takes us back to Pat, who has arguably fit this bill so well that people crushing on him is now becoming a more common thing in the fandom in itself. And not to mention the shipping art, because yes, there is shipping art, and more than you probably think. And with that considered, I think it's also safe to say that this has also played a role into his popularity. However, with that, I don't think Lucky will be completely obscure forever, as there have been plenty of characters who were previously blank slates or relatively unknown that would eventually get their time in the spotlight, with most of them becoming absolute GOATs, especially in Season 3. So I wouldn't be too surprised if they did something similar to Lucky, even if his situation might not be the most ideal fit for the average episode. But with all that said, I'm curious to hear what your reasons are for liking Pat, and why you think his son may have fallen into somewhat obscurity. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and until next time, my name's Hideaki, and for now I'll be signing out. Have a great day everyone, and I'll see you soon. Bye everyone.
Well...
Bye!
Ah!
Classic Stripe.
So, for today's art of the day, we have this wonderful comic by user Wolferiz on Twitter, featuring my friends OC Ruli and Hideaki with way too much, or rather, not enough Bluey lunchboxes, which has kind of become a running gag for fans of my channel. Special shout out to them for this hilarious piece, and thank you so much.